He was worth $300 million. In today's money, as a man sitting inside the wealth, holding it in his hands, and telling you with absolute certainty what it actually is. His name was Seneca, and what he discovered about money from the inside will change how you think about every financial decision you have ever made. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 things that Seneca discovered about money that took him a lifetime of wealth to understand. First, what your relationship with money is actually built on, and why building it on the wrong thing guarantees you never feel financially free, regardless of how much you accumulate. Second, the exact Stoic distinction between wanting money and needing money. These sound like the same thing. They are the opposite of the same thing. And the difference determines everything about how you earn, spend, and invest. Third, the one question Seneca asked himself every evening about his finances that is more powerful than any budgeting system, investing strategy, or financial course you will ever take. Seneca was not a poor philosopher dreaming about wealth from a distance. He had everything, and everything taught him something that nothing else could have. This is what he learned. Lucius Annaeus Seneca was born around 4 BC in Cordoba, Spain. He was brought to Rome as a child, educated in philosophy and rhetoric, and by his 30s was already one of the most celebrated writers and orators in the empire. He accumulated wealth the way talented people in powerful cities do, through proximity to power, through his writing, through the network that excellence builds over decades. And then the Emperor Caligula nearly had him executed. Caligula was threatened by Seneca's brilliance. He ordered his death. Seneca survived only because someone convinced Caligula he was already dying of tuberculosis and would be dead within months anyway. He was not dead within months. The next emperor, Claudius, exiled him to the island of Corsica for 8 years. No estates, no wealth, no influence. Just an island, his mind, and the philosophy he had been writing about. He survived the exile. He was eventually recalled to Rome and made tutor to the young prince who would become the Emperor Nero. Under Nero, Seneca became the most powerful man in Rome, not named emperor. The wealth returned, multiplied. The estates, the influence, the extraordinary life. And then Nero accused him of conspiracy and ordered him to take his own life. Seneca complied, calmly. At 69 years old, he spent his final hours comforting the people around him, his wife, his friends, his students, telling them that the years he had lived were enough. A man who had $300 million worth of wealth, who lost it, rebuilt it, and lost everything again, and in his final hours was more concerned with the grief of the people around him than with any of it. That is not a performance. That is a man who had actually learned what wealth is. Here is what he wrote. Here is the most important thing almost everyone gets wrong about the Stoics and money. The Stoics were not anti-wealth. They were not telling you to be poor. They were not romanticizing poverty. Seneca himself said, and I am not paraphrasing, that poverty is a miserable thing when it comes from necessity rather than philosophy. He meant, being poor because you have no choice is suffering, but choosing not to need wealth in order to be content, that is freedom. The Stoics had a specific term for things like money. They called them preferred indifference. Preferred, meaning it is genuinely better to have them than not. Indifferent, meaning your fundamental well-being, your peace, your freedom. None of that depends on them. Money is preferred, health is preferred, reputation is preferred, but none of them are required. Seneca wrote, It is not the man who has little who is poor. It is the man who craves more. Read that again. It is not the man who has little who is poor. It is the man who craves more. This means the person with 50,000 in savings who feels financially secure is wealthier in the Stoic sense than the person with 5 million who is constantly anxious about losing it. The number in the account is not the measure. Your relationship with the number is the measure. And here is where most people's financial lives go wrong. Not in the earning, not in the spending, but in building their entire identity around a number they have designated as the point at which they will finally feel okay. Seneca spent 30 years watching the wealthiest people in Rome chase that number. He never once saw someone reach it and stop. Because the number was never the point. The anxiety underneath the number was the point. And no amount of money has ever dissolved anxiety. The first shift, and it is the most important one in this entire video, is separating your sense of security from your account balance. Not because the account balance does not matter, because your security cannot live there. Your security has to live somewhere that cannot be taken. The only place that exists is inside your own mind. Seneca called it inner freedom. The Stoics built their entire philosophy around it, because they had seen what happened to people who built it anywhere else. Seneca had a practice so simple that most people dismiss it immediately. Before spending anything, 30 seconds. One question: do I want this? Or do I believe I need it? Wanting is desire for something that would add to your life. Needing is believing something is required for your life to function. They sound similar. They are not. When Seneca was exiled to Corsica, stripped of everything, the estates, the influence, the wealth, he discovered something he had not expected. He did not miss most of it. The things he had believed he needed, he had only wanted. And he wrote from the island, "I have learned to travel light, not in my luggage but in my desires." That sentence is worth more than most financial advice books ever written. Every evening, Seneca asked himself one question: what did I do today that was enough? Not what did I earn, not what did I save, not what did I accumulate. What did I do today that was enough? Most financial lives have no finish line. The goal is always more, and more is infinite. An infinite goal means you are always behind, regardless of how much you have. Tonight, before you sleep, ask it. Name one thing that was enough today. Write it down if you can, and then let today be enough. Not because you are done, because a person who cannot feel enough at any number will not feel it at a larger one. Everything in this video came from one book, Letters from a Stoic by Seneca. 124 letters, written by the wealthiest Stoic who ever lived. They read like a very wise person telling you something important before it is too late. Free is your first Audible audiobook. Link is in the description. Start with letter 1. It takes 4 minutes. Something will shift. Seneca had $300 million. He said it was inventory. Subscribe if you are building the thing that cannot be taken. New wisdom every week. Seneca's letters are in the description. So is next week's video.